The Republican Zone is brought to you by Drew Murray, a modern view from the Republican lens, covering local and national news, understanding that one size doesn't fit all when it comes to politics. The Republican Zone airs Wednesday from 1 to 2 p.m. and Saturday from 3 to 4 p.m.
Good afternoon. You're listening to USLA Radio. My name is Drew Murray, and I am the host of the Republican Zone. I have a guest today, my friend Aaron Beshear. Am I pronouncing that correctly? That was good? Okay. So Aaron is, just like me, he is running for state representative, but you're running for the 172nd Legislative District. Is that correct? Nice.
Right.
And that is the seat currently held by
Kevin Boyle.
Kevin Boyle, not
Yes.
to be confused with his brother Brendan Boyle, who is a
Right.
U.S. congressman. So good luck on your race. Give some of our listeners a background. Where you're from originally? How long have you lived in Philadelphia? You are a Republican. I'm not sure if I said you were a Republican candidate running for state rep. How long have you been a Republican? And what got you involved in politics?
Well, Drew, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm so thankful to you and USALA Media and your team for having me here. It is such an honor and privilege for me to be on your show. So let me talk about a little bit about my background. So as you just said, my name is Aaron Beshear, and I'm a candidate for District 172, which pretty much consists of Northeast Philadelphia. And I'm a Republican, and I've been always a Republican, even though I registered as independent in the beginning, but always my core values and my ideology was more inclined towards Republicans. And I belong to a minority group. I actually migrated from Pakistan in 2001 when 9/11 happened, so I just migrated before that, like a couple of months, like I was here in March. So regarding my story, I was almost 21 when I came here. So it was like all of us, I worked hard on my American dream. I went to Community College of Philadelphia, graduated from
Nice.
there. Then I went to Temple for my bachelor degree in accounting and actuarial science. Then I got my MBA in LaSalle. Right now I'm teaching at Community College.
I was going to say we were both Temple Owls, but you went to LaSalle, so
Yeah.
for your MBA, I got my MBA at Temple.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Currently, I'm working on my PhD
Oh, wow.
in the field of organizational leadership in the Chicago School of Professional
Oh,
Psychology.
wow. I am not going for my doctorate. When I finished my MBA, I said, I am never going to school for a degree again. I'm like, I'll go back to take a class or two, maybe learn a foreign language, but I'm like, I do not want to go back for another degree because I know how hard it is.
Yeah, it is. It is not easy. I remember like a couple of nights, like when I was up working like till 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and then again getting up early morning and going to work.
Yeah, no, I remember. I graduated Temple in literally the fall/winter of 2001, 2002. So it was literally when you moved here is when I finished Temple.
Right.
Because I was at Temple taking classes, or I should say I was there. Well, classes were canceled for a few days, but I remember. One of the things I remember about 9/11 is the first day of class after 9/11, because of course that's all we talked about, and many classes were canceled. So yeah, I think I'm a few years older than you. I can do the math. You must have been born in 1980. So
Right.
you
are good at math. I can say that.
Yes. My dad was a math teacher in high school, so I better be pretty good at math. So you were born in Pakistan, and you are the first Pakistani ever to run for state rep.
Well, in my district, I'm
your
like the
district?
first
Okay.
Pakistani Christian who is running for this office, and I wanted to share a little unique story about myself. How I migrated to the United States. My father was here. He's been here almost for 40 years. So pretty much most of my family members on my father's side, they are here. So actually, I got sick in Pakistan. I needed bone marrow transplant. So I was like a patient of aplastic anemia. And at that time, being a third world country, Pakistan, the medical facility for doing the bone marrow transplant wasn't available there. So it was a dire situation. It was a desperate situation for myself and my family because I was having the blood transfusions. So, but, miracles happen. And that's what I believe in. Miracle happened. And without any bone marrow transplant, God healed me. So we
Wow, that's
prayed.
amazing. I didn't even know that about you.
So
We met a few times. We've become friends over the past
yeah,
over the past few months. There aren't a whole lot of Republicans in the city, so you tend to
right,
meet them. And you just saw
right.
Sheila just before this that
Yes,
you're meeting with her tomorrow, but you never met with her
right,
face to face.
right, right.
So it's a small. Well, I say Philadelphia is a big small
So
town.
why
So
I mentioned that
hmm
story, Drew, because I had the commitment because I was given a second shot at
sure.
life, and I wanted to live at like the full optimal potential that God has given me, because I was healed. I believe for a reason. I was given life to do something great with my life. So that's why I worked hard here, to get myself educated,
hmm
and I always like look at the world from like unique perspective, like hey, where is the gap, what needs to be done, how can I be helpful for my community, for my like city, for my state, for my church, for my people.
Sure. And what made you like? For me, the reason I got into politics is I'm a civic leader. I was the president and board member of my neighborhood association. When did you decide? Not only are you interested in politics, when were you like, okay, I'm actually going to run for a political seat?
Well, what I saw was in 2008 to 2016, that really disturbed me. As I just said, originally I'm from Pakistan, and I have seen the extremism, I have seen the radical Islam, how, like, the things were gotten worsened there slowly and gradually when the extremism took over. And especially, I saw, like, US government in Obama's administration, it was swaying towards left, all those liberal policies, and I figured out, the country was losing the direction. So I didn't want to see the same chaos what I have seen in Pakistan, the extremism and socialism, like, everything is done by the government, healthcare, the education, and you can see the quality. It's so deteriorated. It's like, so much problems there. Like, for instance, if you go to like an average hospitals, sometimes they are missing the mandatory equipment to save the lives of people. And that's why people got killed. They don't have those like, specific machines for like oxygen, when somebody's dying, like they need to put that oxygen mask, and they are even not available.
In Pakistan, is it a state-run medical system?
Yes,
Okay.
most of it is. There are like private hospitals, but they're so expensive, and only rich people can afford them. But for general public, it's like public health, and like it's like so bad. That's why one of my reasons was like when I was sick, there was no help
hmm
available, and I was gonna to die. If I believe my good Lord Jesus hasn't done any miracle for me, I would have died. But God gave me life, and I believe I should be using this for this life to for the betterment of humanity.
And the 172nd, so it's in Northeast Philadelphia. Is it entirely within the borders of the city of Philadelphia? The
Yes,
172nd?
most
Okay.
yeah, pretty much like 95% you can say it's pretty much whole city of Philadelphia, like in the northeast side. Part of it goes to a little bit in Abington side, so but mostly it's like northeast Philadelphia.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for running. We've talked about this a lot in the Republican Party, especially in the past year. And I'll be honest with you, I'm running for the 182nd. People tell me, and I understand. Look, I'm going in to win it, but it's an 8-to-1 ratio in my district. It is most likely almost impossible, if not impossible, for a Republican to win. But I think it's important just to get people on the ballot and to give people a choice. And the Republicans started to do that in the district council races. People like Duke Orsino and Pete Smith and Michael Bradley. Look, we need to be on the ballot. Even if going in, someone like Michael Bradley said, you know what, I probably can't win, but we're not going to make any inroads as a Republican if we don't
Yeah.
start to be on the ballot.
Well, Drew, like I always think on the positive side.
Mhm.
The ratios are important. I'm a mathematician. I teach in community college algebra. But I think people have that sense, like what's happening recently, in our country. I think a lot of people, they are swinging so fast towards the Republican Party because now they're looking at the facts. They are looking at the truth. Because there's so many people, their opinions, their perceptions are being built by just the fake news.
Mhm.
However, when you start looking at the facts, like look at the unemployment rate, look at the economy, look at the jobs, how the jobs are being created, the economy is doing much stronger and better. People are happier than what they were in Obama's administration. And if you look at the facts, this president has done much more for like African American community and for the minority groups, much better than other people who claim to represent. For instance, when I'm looking at Philadelphia, I'm looking at state of Pennsylvania, especially looking at certain sections of Philadelphia, when I look at the crime rates, look at the violence, look at the neighborhoods being deteriorated, looking at the poverty rate. And this city of Philadelphia, for the last couple of decades, has been run by the Democrats. And I do not understand. They have the majority in the city council. They have the funding available. They had all that funding available for federal from 2008 to 2016. And currently they have enough funding for the city and for the state. I don't understand what their excuse is. Why do I see all those abandoned houses? Why do you see, like, all that broken houses, the weaker family structure, and also, above all, look at the school district. It is screwed up. We are one of the worst school district in the nation. So if everything has been done by the Democrats, why are we not improving?
Sure.
That's what my question
No,
is.
well, you cannot in the city of Philadelphia blame the Republicans for the 25% poverty rate for the state of our schools because they have been in power for
That's very
70
true.
years. And look, I think there are some good things happening in the city of Philadelphia. But I look at some district council races, just going back to the last cycle, and I think people just vote Democrat because that's what they think they're supposed to do. You're innocent until proven guilty, but the bottom line is you had Kenyatta Johnson, who is under investigation
Yes.
for illegal activity. You have Bobby Heenan, who is under indictment for illegal activity. And again, these gentlemen are innocent until proven guilty, but they still won. They still beat the Republicans in the race. And in Kenyatta's circumstance, he won a primary against a very good candidate in Lauren Vitas, who is smart, who is, I probably don't agree with Lauren on a lot of political issues, but I think she's a good person. I think she would have been a good district council person, and Kenyatta still beat her significantly. I mean, it wasn't blown out of the water, but I thought Lauren was going to win, but it's amazing. It's people, not only do they think they need to vote Democrat, they think they need to vote for the incumbent. It is very challenging to beat an incumbent in the city of Philadelphia. And I think part of that issue is on the Democratic side, the ward leaders are so powerful. And it takes a lot of money to get endorsed by a ward because they ask if they'll give you their endorsement if you pay them. And it's a substantial amount of money, and a lot of new candidates can't afford that. So
That's very true. And I agree with you, Drew. I think one thing I would give the credit to Democrats. They are good at making a perception in the media, especially, the wrong perception. See, a lot of people, they even don't think about, all right, who the candidate is, what the core values are, what they're standing for. They vote straight for the party. And I don't think, it is a good approach. As a voter, as an independent, person, as a citizen of the United States, because to me, my first loyalty is to this city and this country and this state. Okay, so I got to, think about, okay, what is good for the city? What is good for the state? What is good for our country? So looking at, current situation, a lot of people, they are just, formulating their opinion based on the fake news and the media that has been, portrayed. And every person, every reasonable person can conclude that, media has been manipulating, the voters. Media has been biased. There is so much money involved in it. There is so much stakes involved in it, and people use the media for the benefit. But an educated person, excuse me, since I'm an educator, I'm a professor at college, and that's what I encourage my students. Think critically. Evaluate a situation, because an educated person, you should be able to think. You should be able to look at the facts and then formulate your opinion.
all right, we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Usula Radio. I'm Drew Murray, and I'm the host of the Republican Zone. We'll be back in a few minutes. Okay.
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices.
Like your text to emoji ratio.
Oh man, the selfies. Selfie, nailed it.
We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on man, let's split a ride home.
Sometimes the things we do or say can make others feel hurt, excluded, or isolated. Everything you say and do creates an impact.
How am I supposed to save the whole world?
You can't think about saving the world. You have to think about saving one person.
Because of you, someone's entire life can change. You don't have to be a superhero to have a positive impact.
Friends?
Friends.
Welcome back. You're listening to USLA Radio. I am Drew Murray, and I am the host of the Republican Zone. I am here with my friend Aaron Bashir, who is a Republican candidate running for the Pennsylvania 172nd Legislative District. That's a lot of words to say. Whenever people ask me what I'm running for, before City Council was easy. I'm running for City Council at large. The 182nd, in my case, 172nd in yours, Pennsylvania Legislative District. I don't know how I'm going to put that on my buttons when my buttons made.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We're starting to ramp up for the election. I just found out. So in order to get, and you know this, in order to get on the ballot, you need to get 300 signatures from Republicans within your district.
Yes.
And on a non-presidential election year, this happens at the end of February. I assumed it was always the end of February, and I just learned 2 days ago that we need to start getting signatures on January 28th, and I was amazed at that.
Okay.
You probably knew, because the first time you run in, you probably like, okay, you ask somebody, okay, when is it? I always thought it was the third Tuesday in February, but it is the, I guess it's the last Tuesday of January this year. So
Right. Honestly, I was looking at that candidate workshop that the Harrisburg committee is going to
on Friday, yep.
So I did have my schedule, but I knew it was gonna to be in January, but I exactly didn't know what the dates were. Thank you for reminding me.
I had no idea. In fact, I'm getting all my literature made, and I told my brother who does my literature, I'm like, just get it to me by the end of January. This is a different race than the city council race in that it's a general election, meaning I'm not expecting anyone to run in the primary, and you're probably the same way. You're not expecting anyone to run in the primary, so you're looking to November. That's that's what I'm looking at. As far as spending money, I'm looking at more November. So to me, it was okay. Let's get on the ballot, and then we'll start some fundraising. Right. And so I thought I had another month and a half, or about a month before the election really ramped up, but 2 weeks. So I will tell you, and this is just so you're prepared, it is not easy to get signatures. City council, you needed 1,000, which is a lot, and seems like a lot. It really you needed 1,500 in order not to be challenged, and that's exactly what I got, and it was hard. The state rep, you need 300, which seems like, that's nothing, but it's a much smaller geographic area, and it's not like a Democrat where you can basically knock on every door, and 9 out of 10 people who answer are going to be Democrats.
Right.
It's you're 1 out of 10 people, and you have a street list. So, but it is hard. So just be prepared. I know people told me before the city council race, you got to be prepared, be ready, and I knew it. I had a plan, and I was ready to go. But I tell people, you don't know what you don't know until you really start, and
That's
how hard
true.
it is.
That's very true. When I started, there were so many things, and I'm glad you mentioned all these things, because they are kind of learning, tips for people who are interested in running for an office in future, that this is what they need to go through.
Sure.
I'm glad you mentioned about it. And you're right, it's not easy to get the signatures, knocking at the doors. And I think, but we understand that it is so significant, it needs to be done. It's important because we care, and we care for our communities, we care for our city, and we care for our state. And winning and losing is a different thing, but at least we want people to know the truth. We want people to understand that, Republicans are not their enemy. They are there to help them out, just as they believe the Democrats are. It's just some ideas that where we believe, the things needs to be done in a different way. And I think, very, strongly, firmly believe in that thing, that, the ideas that we have, they are working. Right now, you can see it in last 3 years for the African-American community, for the marginalized communities that as we just discussed. They are helping them, they are working them, So a lot of good friends, they need to understand that,
Sure.
They need to think for themselves.
Absolutely, I don't think enough people think, and I'll even say on people on the far left and the far right, I don't think those people think enough for themselves. I mean, I'm a moderate. I always tell people I never, I was a Democrat this time, in October of 2018. I was still a Democrat. So, I didn't wake up one day and decide I'm an ultra conservative Republican. That's not how it happens. I used to say I was a very conservative Democrat. Now I say I'm a liberal to moderate Republican. And one thing, and we touched on a little bit right before the break, but people always ask me, Drew, why did you leave the Democratic Party? And my answer is always exactly the same. I didn't leave the Democratic Party; they left me. The Democratic Party of
They just don't
2020. Well, I think they care. Look, I think the difference between Democrats and Republicans. I always say this. Look, we want safe schools and good schools for our children. We want safe communities, and we want good jobs. I mean, those are three fundamental things that both Republicans and Democrats want. It's just, how do we get there? How do we implement those things? How do we achieve those goals? So I think that's the main difference. And and when you look at it just in a very easy kind of manner, Democrats want higher taxes and bigger government. Republicans want smaller taxes and a smaller government. So it's just two different avenues to try to get to the same place. Yeah. But the Democratic Party, I always look at it as kind of a spectrum. And I used to be a liberal, or I should say a conservative Democrat. As the Democratic Party has moved further left, which there is no doubt in my mind that they have, and they are moving to more of a socialist party, in my opinion. At least the far left absolutely is. I felt that they left me, and they didn't represent my beliefs anymore. So,
I absolutely agree with you too. As you just mentioned, they are not even the real Democrats anymore. The original ideology of the Democratic Party was much different when they started. And now, as you just said, they have moved so much on the left that you cannot get along with them. Like, for instance, look at the current national issue, right? Now, we took out this guy, Qasem Soleimani. He was a murderer. He was responsible for killing so many American soldiers, directly and indirectly. And now, instead of supporting your president and your army, a lot of folks are siding with Iran. They are siding with those terrorists who have been creating the chaos in this world, forever. So this is crazy, as a patriot, as somebody who loves this country, who understands the real picture. Because I'm going to describe about my experiences as, living as a Christian in Pakistan. I'll talk about it later on. But I know it's so important to support our president, to support our government, to support our army at this point. We cannot give the divided message to Iran and the world. We are united when somebody attacks our army, when somebody attacks our country. We all are one.
I agree 100%. I thought it was disgusting that a lot of Democrats made this a partisan issue. Even if they disagree with, look, I never want to go into a war, and I don't think we're heading toward war, but even if it's possibly going to escalate to a war, we never want to go into that lightly. I was a little nervous when I heard that we took him out. I mean, he's a bad guy. Everyone knows he's a bad guy. I think even the Democrats understand and know he's a bad guy. But I was a little nervous. What if this does escalate? Are we putting our troops in harm's way? But you cannot argue that the person was a bad guy. You cannot argue, and what I should say is, I thought the Democrats should have at least said, come out in support of our president, but they can't. It's against their every being that to even say anything that President Trump does. And look, right. I'm not saying you have to love Trump or hate Trump. He is a very polarizing figure. I understand why people love him. I understand why people don't like him. But sometimes you got to come together as a nation and say, we did the right
what
thing.
I'm saying is, looking at the facts. It's not we started that. First of all, they started to escalate the attacks on the American army.
Yep.
They started to attack our embassy. So this was our retaliation. This was our response. And first of all, my simple question is, he is a general. He's a army man. What is he doing in Iraq? He's supposed to be in Iran. He was definitely planning the attacks, further attacks on our,
absolutely.
Servicemen, but then our army men. And as a leader, as a patriot, I would never ever endorse that. And I always said, hey, if somebody is attacking one of us, he's attacking all of us. So if they are trying to attack our like army members and this person was responsible for killing so many innocent people, I think whatever President Trump did, I stand for it, and I'm a strong supporter and I'm a conservative, and I think I strongly support that cause.
Well, and what people don't understand, because I read a lot of what people say, both in the media, on Facebook, on whatever social media that they're expressing their opinions. People don't understand what he was doing. He was I call him a proxy general. Yeah. He wouldn't bring it under Iran's flag. He would get other people to fight for him.
Exactly.
And that's what he would do. And he would push the buttons. He would make things happen.
And that's equally dangerous.
Yeah, it's more dangerous in my opinion.
Right.
And everyone knew he did it. So for those who come out and say, why did we start this war? We went after an enemy of the United States who has killed United States citizens.
Exactly.
And I don't understand, even if you're nervous that it's going to escalate to war, which I am. I don't want that war.
I don't think the president wants a war.
No, I don't think he does.
And none of us want war. But if somebody's attacking and pushing us, then we have all the rights to defend ourselves. Because why I said that, let me tell you, like I lived in Pakistan. I was born and I was raised there. I have seen the atrocities. I have seen, the oppression under the Islamic regime, how minorities are suffering still in Pakistan. Being like a Christian Pakistani, life is hell there. There are blasphemy laws. There are other discriminatory laws against Christians and against.
You don't have freedom of religion.
We don't have freedom of religion. We don't have freedom of speech there, for instance. And the discrimination is written, and it is in black and white in the Constitution. As a Christian, you cannot be the prime minister. You cannot be the president of the Pakistan.
Oh, that's interesting. I did not know.
It's written in the Constitution.
So you're allowed to practice Christianity theoretically, but it's almost like quietly.
Quietly. That's all. But once they find out who you are and what you stand for, you cannot take on the certain jobs. You cannot go into executive jobs, as I just said, and it's very dangerous. And also, on the social level, the status of discrimination on the social level is very, very dangerous. Like, let's say if somebody finds out that, this is a Christian neighborhood, and sometimes it has happened in the past, actually, they degraded Prophet Muhammad, or somebody, burned the Quran, and even though nobody burns the Quran, but for personal gains, people use those blasphemy laws, and they burn the whole neighborhoods. Like, hundreds of people are out of their houses, people get killed for, ridiculous things. And that's why I'm here, because, I have seen all that extremism. I have seen, my experiences, living under Islamic regime. It is dangerous. And any American, who think, that was a nice guy, we should be supporting him, I just challenge them one thing. Go live in a Muslim country for a year or 2 years and then come back and then tell me, should you appreciate the American government and American freedom?
Yeah, and that's why we live in an incredible country, because we do have freedom of religion. If you want to be a Christian, you can be a Christian. If you want to be a Muslim, you can be a Muslim.
And here is one little challenge, Drew. Anybody who thinks, Iran is good, they are very good people, just go live there for 6 months and then come back and tell me what kind of people they are.
Sure. Now, what's interesting, too, and when President Trump pulled the troops out of Syria, I actually disagree with him. I still disagree with him. I don't think we should have pulled out. But when he tried to de-escalate our presence in Syria, people went nuts. When we escalate a situation in taking out what I'll call him a terrorist,
he is.
They go nuts. And it goes back to the point where no matter what President Trump
does,
you go.
I was about to say that. Simple bottom line. They are going to look for an excuse to just go against him, to bring him down. I don't understand. What are you unhappy about? This guy has done fantastic job. Look at the jobs. There are thousands of jobs being created. We are becoming independent in energy jobs. Look at Pennsylvania. We are the second biggest reserve in natural oil and gas now. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now,
I'd rather get. That's my Democratic side. I'd rather get away from fossil fuels. Put that out. But no, I agree. We
how about the unemployment
here.
rate?
Yeah.
And looking
Absolutely.
at the African American unemployment
rate. It's the lowest point ever.
People are slowly going out of the welfare system, and they have started to work.
And we're beyond full employment. We're beyond full employment for the first time for years now.
Yes.
So and look, could that have been fallover from President Obama? Yeah, part of it probably was. It's a cycle, and if you look at an economic cycle, yes, it does go up and down. But we've been in an inflationary period for years now, and I do think that's because of a lot of President Trump's policies. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to USLA Radio and the Republican Zone.
Don't wait. Communicate. Make your emergency plan today.
Welcome back. You're listening to USLA Radio. I am Drew Murray, and I'm the host of the Republican Zone here with my friend Aaron Bashir, who is running for the 172nd Legislative District. And you're running against, and I always have to pause, Kevin Boyle. I always want to say Brendan Boyle. So theoretically, you're running, assuming he gets through the primary and no one challenges him, you're running against Kevin Boyle. So what are the biggest issues that you see in the city, the state, your district specifically?
Well, there are a lot of issues, but I'm focusing on three things right now. To me, the most important thing is right now the public safety. Northeast Philadelphia used to be one of the best neighborhoods, and if you would have visited like 20 years ago, the Northeast Philadelphia, you would have seen a little different picture. The neighborhoods were like stronger, cleaner, better. There were lesser crimes. However, I have seen that over the course of last few years, especially last 2 decades, the Northeast Philadelphia has been starting to deteriorate. And one of the reasons I believe that, the leadership, especially the political leadership, is not really paying attention. It's not safer anymore. It's not stronger and cleaner as it used to be. And this is what I'm going to focus as a future state representative, that, I stand for the stronger neighborhood where people feel safe, where people would like to raise their families, and they would like to, work on their American dream. We must need to keep American dream alive for us and also for, the future immigrants and for future generations and our children and our families. So this is one of the things I will, make sure that I provide my full support to law enforcement agencies, and also provide my full support to the community organizations, to captain blocks. And also I have an approach that, I wanted to set up some committees on every single block, every single street, where people get to know each other, where neighbors know, at least, in the past, the norm was, at least if you didn't know the whole block, at least you knew like couple of neighbors, But right now, as our demographics are changing, as our cultural, population, the immigration is mass immigration has happened in Northeast Philadelphia, the things are changing so fast. So we must need to create that sense of neighborhood, sense of that community. So what I wanted to work on is build some communities, build some committees so people interact with each other.
Some communities have it. Some communities have police advisory committees. I know where I live does, but that doesn't mean they have them all over.
Yeah.
Or if they're there, a lot of people don't know about them. So.
Right. So we do also right now, we have a community neighborhood group, and then they do a meeting once a month. However, I believe, that needs to be more community members and more residents needs to be engaged, and it needs to be really restarted at each block. That's what I believe.
Okay.
In. So the second thing I believe that, we must need to stand for the lower taxes. For instance, I used to work for the city government. I worked there as a financial accountant for almost 11 years. And I always emphasized on one thing, efficiency. And what I mean by that is I believe that there are ways that we can do the things in cost-efficient way, in less time-consuming way. For instance, when I was working in the pension fund, some of the uploads we did, took on average a week and a half or 2 weeks. But when I took over that job, I did some program and I was able to do the same job within 2 hours.
Oh, there you go.
So this is what I believe in. There is an efficiency that needs to be addressed, and also in the same token, we have to think about the government. There are things that can be done in more cost-effective way. That means we will have to charge lesser taxes now. But I'm frustrated when I see the taxes keep going every year higher and higher. So I believe as a mathematician, as a professor, as an educated person, I can find out those gaps, how we can bring down our costs. Because I believe there are only two ways you can work on a budget. Either you increase your revenue or you decrease your expenses. You cut down on expenses. Those are the only two basic approaches. And I believe like I'm very good at cutting expenses, and that means people will have to pay the lower taxes. So that is the second thing. Now the third thing I stand for is the higher education. I believe that a lot of families, lower class, middle class income, people, they need to have good education on affordable prices, and that's what I stand for. Like public safety, lower taxes, and education. And when I said about education, again, I wanted to re-emphasize that the school district is broken. I firmly believe that the school choice is one of the good approaches, and also I stand for providing more resources for the communities, because people need to get paid more, and in order to do that, they need to have good education and good skills so they can work on better jobs.
Okay. So, well, we talked about the public safety a little bit. Let's talk about a little about taxes. And this was actually a big issue when I was running for city council, and this is an issue that it's both city and state. So I ran a city-wide race, and now I'm going into a state race, but there's overlap. And one of the big ways there was overlap, and I'd like to revisit this plan, and you might not know about it, so I'll explain if you don't know. Are you familiar with the Levy-Sweeney plan?
Not much.
Not much. Okay. So what that basically was, it was Paul Levy with Center City District, and oh God, I forget Sweeney's first name. I'm sorry. From Brandywine Realty Trust. What they wanted to do, I'm going to simplify it a little bit. What they wanted to do was they wanted to lower the wage tax in the city of Philadelphia, but they wanted to increase taxes on commercial real estate. So, and Jerry Sweeney, that's his name, I'm sorry. Jerry Sweeney, who works for Brandywine Realty Trust, is saying, I want you to tax my real estate more. If that means the Philadelphia wage tax, which is one of the highest in the country, can be decreased. And I thought it was a great idea. And the thought process is we want to bring jobs into the city.
Right.
Real estate can't leave the city. So let's tax the real estate more. The problem is, or the challenge is for the city of Philadelphia, is there's a uniformity clause with the state of Pennsylvania, meaning you can't tax commercial real estate any differently than residential real estate. So there would need to be a legislative change in Harrisburg in order to do this. And Representative John Taylor was trying to get this through before he retired a couple of years ago. And I thought it was going to go through. And as I ran for city council, I actually brought this plan up a lot, and something I discovered while I was running for an office. And I think it'll be a little different in our races because it's going to be a one-on-one, is most people had no clue. And this is a citywide race where people should know what the Levy-Sweeney plan was. They had no idea. But I thought it was something we should look at. As I'm running for state rep, I'm going to bring it up again because I think the city and the state should revisit this. I think we should look at the Levy-Sweeney plan in order to decrease the wage. The goal is to decrease the wage tax. And that's something I think is crucial for the city of Philadelphia.
And I agree with you too. I am there for the working families. I believe in the lower taxes. And, as a commercial corporations and companies and the small business owners, they have little bit levy, to play with a little bit more financial assets and financial transactions. However, the working families and the lower class families, they are the one who really, really need the strong help. And I agree with you. I wouldn't mind, increasing the domain of revenue on big corporations. However, I believe that, the working families, because they are already under the heavy burden. Because if you look at the facts, an average American family doesn't have a lot of savings. People are under credit card debts, and people are hardly surviving paycheck to paycheck. And this situation needs to be improved.
Sure.
And I believe that, one of the things that government can do is by bringing the taxes down, as you just suggested, that could help a lot.
Sure.
That could help the neighborhoods. That could help the poverty rate.
And I think the thought process was as a net zero gain, meaning you're going to increase taxes in one area, but you're going to decrease them in another. The revenue is not going to be increasing, and it would put more money into the pockets of all the citizens in Philadelphia and even some non-citizens, but it would attract more jobs to the city of Philadelphia, which if you want to bring down the poverty rate, that's what I tell people. How do you bring down the poverty rate of 25% that's in Philadelphia? You get more jobs. And
That's right. You got it.
I'm not a big fan of minimum wage because I don't think it does anything, number one. A $15 minimum wage still is not a living wage. If you make $15 an hour, you're not going to have a family in the city of Philadelphia. So it It doesn't do anything except maybe hurt a very small business and part-time labor.
I think, dude, there is so much that could be done. You know, there is so much that needs to be done. You know, for instance, if you bring like commercial realtors, like contractors, let them come and start fixing the properties. Like, you know, I see those abandoned houses, and there is so much potential, but there is so much bureaucracy involved. Like, for instance, some houses are sitting there, you know, for years and years, and that means when they're vacant houses, that means they're like, you know, drugs, prostitution, and then, you know, so much involved. So the sooner we can figure that one out, you know, how we fix our neighborhoods, you know, how we work on the mindset of, you know, our neighbors, you know, hey, if the neighborhood is stronger, better, cleaner, it's going to help everybody. You know, people would like to come and stay in Philadelphia and in Pennsylvania. But, you know, as you said, if the neighborhoods are not safer and stronger and cleaner, people are not going to move in.
No, I agree 100%. And unfortunately, from a public safety standpoint, I think one of the first things we need to do is vote out our current district attorney, Larry Krasner.
Right.
That's a city issue, not a state issue. But you know, I think our city is less safe since Larry Krasner has taken office. And this is someone speaking who I'm in favor of criminal justice reform, but what he is doing is not criminal justice reform. That's what I always tell people. He is a, you know, we got what we paid for. He is a public defender who is now the chief prosecutor in one of the largest cities in the country. So,
and one of the cities that has really high crime rates.
Absolutely, and it's an increasing crime rate. You know, murders were going down before Larry Krasner took office, and now they're increasing in a time when they're decreasing in other big cities around the country. At a time when the economy is good, right? You know, crime always increases when the economy's bad, and it makes sense. I'm not giving excuses to people, but you know, when people don't have jobs, they're going to be more likely to commit crimes. If the country and, you know, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, unemployment, you know, the economy is exploding, why is our murder rate increasing? And I look at the only variable, and that's our district attorney, Larry Krasner. So. But I don't know what we can do about that, except individually we can vote for someone else other than Larry in the next election in a couple of years.
Yeah,
so.
well, Drew, this is what I believe. We the people, we are very strong. And once we the people get united and we figure out what is good for us and who is really looking after us, forget about the media, forget about the fake news. Look at what's working. Look at, like, recent 3 years, things have changed. The country is in the right direction. You know, economy is booming. And, you know, people get more jobs. And I wanted to keep it this way. And I wanted to escalate, actually, for Northeast Philadelphians and Pennsylvanians. And overall for, like, you know, all Philadelphians. Because I cannot see when I travel and look at those abandoned neighborhoods, the crime rates, you know, that prostitution, that drugs, you know, that really, really, like, you know, touches my heart. And that really annoys me, that really offends me. You know, hey, what the hell are people doing there, you know, doing nothing about it? And, you know, I simply ask all of my good Democrat friends, ask the Democrats, ask that, you know, unqualified leadership, hey, you have the whole of the city for years and years. What's happening? Why are you not improving it? And if they're not doing anything about it, I strongly encourage my good Democrat friends, you know, to vote for the Republican candidates like you and me, so we could change the things here.
We all know the definition of insanity, and it's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So I tell people, take a chance, vote Republican. So we're going to take a quick break here. You're listening to USLA Radio and the Republican Zone.
I came out in the 11th grade. Nobody was embracing you. The kids were cruel. It was very difficult to be gay. Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. And even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. I have a mentor, Maria, and she convinced me to continue my education. Just never judges. She's a true role model.
From the depths of my heart, I thank you, Maria, for being a friend and a beautiful person. No one receives a diploma alone, and I'm honored to share this moment with you. Thank you.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Welcome back. You're listening to USLA Radio. I am Drew Murray, and I'm the host of the Republican Zone. So we're coming into our final 12, 13 minutes with Republican candidate for the legislative 172nd District, Aaron Beshear. And we've talked about a lot of things. We've talked about national politics. We've talked about our president. We talked about Iran. We've talked about specific issues that you want to deal with. You also mentioned education. And I think that's honestly the biggest issue that we all face nationally, from a state level to municipal level, especially in a city like Philadelphia, because we are the poorest big city in the United States. We were 26% poverty. Now we're 25% during a time when the economy is doing incredible. And my fear is, I think the leaders of this city, in order to decrease the poverty level, want to increase taxes, which I think is the worst thing you can do, is to take money out of people's pockets. So what I always tell people is, we're not going to legislate ourselves out of poverty. We need to educate ourselves out of poverty. That means whether it's more investment or better investment. I'm not an educator, so I'm not an expert there. But the one thing I do think is important, and this goes to the soda tax, and this soda tax is purely a city issue. I disagree with the soda tax, or the sweetened beverage tax, I should say, but I absolutely agree with what the programs that it brings. And the two programs that it brings are the Rebuild program for Parks and Rec and the Universal Pre-K program. I think they're both hugely important. I think from the Parks and Rec side, I think every kid in the city should be able to walk to a park or recreation center within 5-10 minutes of their house, and not only one that is in good condition. And I think from a universal pre-K standpoint, I think too many of our children are going into kindergarten not knowing how to read and write, and I think we need to change that. So I tell people, I'd rather invest in the children now. People talk about free public school education at a college level, post-grad level. I don't necessarily agree with that. I agree with Community College of Philadelphia as an affordable alternative to some of the more expensive educations. But I do think we need to find a way to get every child in this city of Philadelphia educated and learning to read and write before kindergarten.
I absolutely agree with that. And as you just mentioned, it's about the mindset. I think we need to create that self-esteem, and we need to, let people understand that, everything is not free, and there are not free lunches in the real world. Because sooner or later you have to wake up and say, hey, people are not going to feed me anymore. I have to work hard. I have to, get up and do something about it, right? And this is one of the problems. I have seen, because, and I'm not saying all the Democrats, but there are some people, there are some Democratic leadership who wants to keep people poor because it increases their vote bank, it increases their, dirty politics. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling, my good friend Democrats, and a lot of them, they agree with me, and they are changing now, that, they need to understand, they can't just always look for the free things, for the free government subsidies. They have to start working, they have to start, investing in the businesses. So life could be better, because life can be better, actually. And they have to stop, thinking about that wrong perception that, that the government is going to provide free things for them, free healthcare, free education, and free. It's not going to work. Now, before I give you an example on this issue, I just wanted to go back and talk about a little bit that soda tax. Mm-hmm. I literally spoke to one of good friends. He was a manager at, I believe it was an Acme or Rite Aid, I forget about it. But this is what he told me. It's a real story. He said, I said, how the soda tax worked for you guys? He said, terrible. I said, what happened? He said people thought it was going to, work good. People are going to start drinking less soda. It's going to increase the revenue for the city. But he said, guess what happened? I said, what happened? He said it affected 20 more products that, were related to soda because, once the word was out there, the soda is expensive. People are not buying the soda taxes. That means they're not buying those snacks. They're not buying the other products. And we had to shut down literally 2 or 3 stores.
What I think another thing that happens is people are still buying soda. They just go outside the city and they purchase soda.
And so many jobs were lost because when they closed those stores, and it worked opposite.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I was actually in favor of the soda tax at first, more because I didn't think revenues would go down. I just thought they would change. I thought instead of
that's what I thought.
I thought instead of drinking soda, they'll drink more water, which is good, and but we'll still get some revenues.
But again, that's what the perception they tried to make. But guess what? Now look at the facts. Yeah. And I was wrong too. It didn't work that way.
It didn't hurt the local store in Center City, maybe a little bit, but it definitely hurt the larger stores that are on the border. And what hurt the most were underserved communities, because for people who have cars, they can drive outside the city, they can get their soda, and guess what? While they're getting their soda, they're loading up their car with everything else that is little bit cheaper out in the suburbs. But people who aren't as mobile and who can't get outside the city, mostly people from underserved communities, they're the ones who are getting hurt the most by the soda tax.
They suffered a lot.
And it's trying to, and look, the soda tax was good intentions, right?
Yeah.
But, the road to hell is sometimes paved with good intentions. And the very communities it was meant to help are the communities that I think it's hurting the most, the underserved communities.
I agree with that too.
And it's hurting businesses. I mean, I never thought businesses would shut down. And then the ShopRite in West Philadelphia shut down, and people who are in favor of the soda tax said, he's just making excuses. The gentleman, I think his name is Mr. Brown, had 5 or 6 other successful stores. And the one that shut down was the one right off of Lancaster Avenue, which is right on the border of the suburbs, and people were just going into Wynwood. I know where exactly they were going. They were going into Wynwood. There's an Acme and a Whole Foods, and they were going there. It's easy to park. It's a 5-10 minute drive. And so it absolutely hurt businesses. Right. And I'm a Republican, so I am pro-business. We need more businesses in this city, not less. And that's why, as we talked about, we need to lower taxes and not raise them.
See, and another thing, Drew, we need to educate people how to start a business, how to run a business. And this is one of the problems. This is what not, has been focus of, my incumbent and, Democratic Party in general. They don't want people to know how to start making, a good income. And I do understand a lot of families now, they have different approaches. They wanted to have flexible schedule, and it works for that way. Once people know how to, look for a need, how to do their marketing plan, marketing research, and it's so easy. And, I believe one of the best ways to tackle the poverty, teach people how to start a business, how to grow.
And it's interesting, when I ran for city council, one of the big things I did hear, and it's extremely difficult to go through the process with the city of Philadelphia to start a business. The paperwork is incredibly challenging. The BIRT, which is the business tax, is completely needs to be revamped. I mean, if you are starting a new business and you are operating at a loss, you are still taxed on your gross revenues. Right. Instead of being taxed on your profit, on your net income, you were taxed on your gross revenue. So it's extremely hard to be an entrepreneur in the city of Philadelphia because you are losing money, but you are still paying taxes on that money.
True. That's very true. And also, look at Delaware, just our neighbor state. A lot of corporations move there, a lot of businesses, they're happy. They, even though they might have their corporate office somewhere else, as a headquarters, but they would come and register everything here.
Sure. No,
and, we need to take that example. Hey, why can't we try to make it a friendly city and state for the business people, small business owners? And it will help a lot. It will improve the poverty rate. It will improve the district. It will improve the crime rates. It will improve everything in general.
No, and we're making it more and more difficult for businesses to do business. I mean, we just revamped the 10-year tax abatement, which I thought was actually a great program, and the city of Philadelphia they modified it, which is actually I was I was happy that it was modified because I thought there was a danger of getting rid of it completely, and that didn't happen. I'm always in favor, and people say, well, the tax abatement wasn't fair. Well, life isn't fair. And if it brings more jobs to the city of Philadelphia, if it brings more people living in the city of Philadelphia, and over a 30-year period, if it actually increases revenue, then I'm all for it. I was interested, and this is another city issue, but I was interested, Councilman Alan Dom, actually, I like Councilman Dom a lot. I think he's actually a very good city council person. I joke, I think he's more of a Republican than he is a Democrat, but he tried to lower the wage tax for the lowest wage earners in the city of Philadelphia. I thought it was a great idea. I mean, people who did criticize President Trump's tax breaks, they thought it was more geared toward the wealthy and not the middle and lower class, which I somewhat agree with. Councilman Dom wanted to lower tax rates for those in the city that make the least, and Mayor Kenny pocket vetoed it. And I question, what was Mayor Kenny thinking? Yeah. Why would he want to take money back? I mean, this bill was passed through council, so it was a pocket veto. The only reason you could do a pocket veto is because it was a change of administration and going to the new city council.
Right. I'm not a big fan of Mayor Kenny as well. I don't agree with a lot of policies that he has there, and especially from the public safety perspective, and from the other his positions not supporting our federal government. So it's and also the stance on sanctuary cities. I think it's very, very, very important that we understand what is good for our residents and what is good for our state.
Yeah, I don't agree with our sanctuary city policy at all. I do think our immigration policy, from a national standpoint, needs to be completely redone. I mean, I
agree.
I think we should make the path to citizenship
easier. I wanted to make
easier.
this point.
I'm an immigrant.
Yeah, okay, and I agree with President Trump's policies. Open borders are not safe for our country. No. And I wanted to clarify this thing as well. President Trump is not against the legal immigrants and legal immigration, but he is definitely thinking in the right perspective. Hey, we cannot afford just keep bringing people and start creating a chaos here. We need to bring those people who can help this country, in booming the economy and helping out on those jobs that we really need here. And also, he is not against the minorities. I'm a minority, and I'm a conservative. He's not against us. But any reasonable person would think, hey, we need the safer country, we need the stronger country. We cannot have the borders open up for everybody, and especially when we do not know who they are.
Sure.
We don't have any security backgrounds on them.
We need to vet everyone coming into the country. I think the United States would benefit from more immigration. I know the city of Philadelphia would absolutely benefit. We're a city of 1.5 million, I think maybe 1.6 million now. We used to be over 2 million.
Yeah.
So we're not even at capacity. I would love to have 500,000 immigrants come to the
city.
And
as long as the immigration is legal, we have the security backgrounds on immigrants. I don't mind. For instance, I waited a few years. My uncle waited 16 years. My mother had to wait 8 years. And,
it shouldn't be that hard, but
Yeah, it was hard, but, I now appreciate it because it gave my dad enough time to establish a platform for them before they come. We were financially stable to support them and help them out.
All right. Well, Aaron, thank you for coming in. We'll have you in again throughout your campaign, and good luck in both the primary and the general. Thank you again.
And thank you so much for having me. God bless.